Unions have a substantial impact on the compensation and work lives of both unionized and non-unionized workers. This video presents current data on unions' effect on wages, fringe benefits, total compensation, pay inequality, and workplace protections. Some of the conclusions are:
unions raise wages of unionized workers by roughly 20% and raise compensation, including both wages and benefits, by about 28%.
Unions reduce wage inequality because they raise wages more for low and middle wage workers than for higher wage workers, more for blue-collar than for white-collar workers, and more for workers who do not have a college degree.
Strong unions set a pay standard that non-union employers follow. For example, a high school graduate whose workplace is not unionized, but whose industry is 25% unionized, is paid 5% more than similar workers in less unionized industries.
The impact of unions on total non-union wages is almost as large as the impact on total union wages.
The most sweeping advantage for unionized workers is in fringe benefits. Unionized workers are more likely than their non-unionized counterparts to receive paid leave, are approximately 18% to 28% more likely to have employer-provided health insurance, and at 23% to 54% more likely to be in employer-provided pension plans.
Unionized workers receive more generous health benefits than non-unionized workers. They also pay 18% lower healthcare deductibles and a smaller share of the costs for family coverage. In retirement, unionized workers are 24% more likely to be covered by health insurance paid for by their employer.
Unionized workers receive better pension plans. Not only are they more likely to have a guaranteed benefit in retirement, their employers contribute 28% more toward pensions.
Unionized workers receive 26% more vacation time and 14% more total paid leave, that is in the form of vacations and holidays. Unions play a pivotal role both in securing legislated labor protections and rights such as health and safety, assuring the payment of overtime wages, following the Family Medical Leave Act, and in enforcing those rights on the job. Because unionized workers are more informed, they are more likely to benefit from social insurance programs such as unemployment insurance and workers' compensation. Unions are thus an intermediary institution that provides a necessary complement to legislated benefits and protections.
It should come as no surprise that unions raise wages, since this has always been one of the main goals of unions, and a major reason that workers seek collective bargaining to get better deals in wages and working conditions. Studies by economists and other researchers for over a century have studied the evidence. That research generally finds that unionized workers' earnings exceed those of comparable non-union workers by about 15%, a phenomenon known as the union wage premium. H. Greg Lewis found the union wage premium to be 10% to 20% in his two well-known assessments, the first in the early 1960s and more than 20 years later released his second publication. Freeman and Duff, in their classic analysis, What Do Unions Do?, arrived at a similar conclusion.
There is a lot of talk about collective bargaining, but what exactly is collective bargaining? Collective bargaining is a process of negotiations between employers and the representatives of a group of employees aimed at reaching agreements which regulate working conditions. Collective agreements usually set out wage scales, working hours, training, health and safety, overtime, grievance mechanisms and rights to participate in workplace or company affairs.
The union may negotiate with a single employer, who is typically representing a company's shareholders, or may negotiate with a group of businesses, depending on the country, to reach an industry-wide agreement. A collective agreement functions as a labor contract between an employer and one or more unions. Collective bargaining consists of the process of negotiation between representatives of a union and employers in respect of the terms and conditions of employment of employees, such as wages, hours of work, working conditions and grievance procedures, and about the rights and responsibilities of trade unions. The parties often refer to the result of the negotiation as a collective bargaining agreement.
In an earlier era, non-wage compensation was referred to as fringe benefits. However, items such as adequate health insurance, a secure retirement pension, and sufficient and flexible paid leave to manage work and family life are no longer considered fringe components of pay packages. Thus, The union impact on benefits is even more critical to the lives of workers now than in the past. This section presents evidence that unionized workers are given employer-provided health and pension benefits far more frequently than comparable non-union workers. Moreover, unionized workers are provided better paid leave and better health and pension plans.
Union workers' paid leave benefits are 11.4% higher in dollar terms, largely because of the higher value of the benefits provided, 8.0% of the total 11.4% impact. Unions have a far larger impact on pensions and health insurance, raising the value of these benefits by 56% and 77.4%, respectively. For pensions, the higher value reflects both that unionized workers are more likely to receive this benefit in the first place and that the pension plan they receive is generally a richer one. For health benefits, the value added by unions mostly comes from the fact that union workers receive a far more generous health plan than non-unionized workers. This factor accounts for 52.7% of the total 77.4% greater value that organized workers receive.
While 83.5% of unionized workers have employer-provided health insurance, only 62% of non-unionized workers have such a benefit. Unionized workers are 28.2% more likely than comparable non-union workers to be covered by employer-provided health insurance. Employers with unionized workforces also provide better health insurance. They pay an 11.1% larger share of single worker coverage and a 15.6% greater share of family coverage. Moreover, deductibles are $54 or 18% less for unionized workers. Finally, unionized workers are 24.4% more likely to receive health insurance coverage in their retirement.
Similarly, 71.9% of unionized workers have pensions provided by their employers, while only 43.8% of non-union workers do. Thus, unionized workers are 53.9% more likely to have pension coverage. Union employers spend 36.1% more on defined benefit plans but 17.7% less on defined contribution plans. As defined benefit plans are preferable, they provide a guaranteed benefit in retirement. These data indicate that union workers are more likely to have better pension plans. Union workers also get more paid time off. This includes having 26.6% more vacation, or 0.63 weeks 3 days, than non-union workers. Another estimate, which includes vacations and holidays, indicates that union workers enjoy 14.3% more paid time off.
There are several ways that unionization's impact on wages goes beyond the workers covered by collective bargaining to affect non-union wages and labor practices. For example, in industries and occupations where a strong core of workplaces are unionized, non-union employers will frequently meet union standards or, at least, improve their compensation and labor practices beyond what they would have provided if there were no union presence. This dynamic is sometimes called the union threat effect, the degree to which non-union workers get paid more because their employers are trying to forestall unionization. There is a more general mechanism, without any specific threat, in which unions have affected non-union pay and practices.
Unions have set norms and established practices that become more generalized throughout the economy, thereby improving pay and working conditions for the entire workforce. This has been especially true for the 75% of workers who are not college educated. Many fringe benefits, such as pensions and health insurance, were first provided in the union sector and then became more generalized, though, as we have seen, not universal. Union grievance procedures, which provide due process in the workplace, have been mimicked in many non-union workplaces. Union wage setting, which has gained exposure through media coverage, has frequently established standards of what workers generally, including many non-union workers, expect from their employers. Until the mid-1980s, in fact, many sectors of the economy followed the pattern set in collective bargaining agreements.
Two conclusions can be reached. First, unions have a positive impact on the wages of non-union workers in industries and markets where unions have a strong presence. Second, because the non-union sector is large, the union effect on the overall aggregate wage comes almost as much from the impact of unions on non-union workers as on union workers. If unions were to disappear, so would the wages and benefits that non-union workers enjoy. An extensive array of labor laws and regulations protects workers in the labor market and the workplace. From the National Labor Relations Act and Social Security Act of 1935 to the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970 and the Family Medical Leave Act of 1993, labor unions have been instrumental in securing labor legislation and standards.
However, beyond their role in the creation of these laws and regulations, unions have also played an important role in enforcing workplace regulations. Unions have provided labor protections for their members in three important ways. 1. They have been a voice for workers in identifying where laws and regulations are needed, and have been influential in getting these laws enacted. 2. They have provided information to members about workers' rights and available programs. And 3. They have encouraged their members to exercise workplace rights and participate in programs by reducing fear of employer retribution, helping members navigate the necessary procedures, and facilitating the handling of the disputes of workers' rights.
Unions have played a prominent role in the enactment of a broad range of labor laws and regulations covering areas as diverse as overtime pay, minimum wage, the treatment of immigrant workers, health and retirement coverage, civil rights, unemployment insurance and workers' compensation, and leave for care of newborns and sick family members. Common to all of these rules is a desire to provide protections for workers either by regulating the behavior of employers or by giving workers access to certain benefits in times of need. Over the years, these rules have become mainstays of the American workplace experience, constituting expressions of cherished public values.
Less well recognized perhaps, is the important role that unions play in ensuring that labor protections are not just paper promises at the workplace. Government agencies charged with the enforcement of regulations cannot monitor every workplace nor automate the issuance of insurance claims resulting from unemployment or injury. In practice, the effectiveness of the implementation of labor protections depends on the worker's decision to act. This is done either by reporting an abuse or filing a claim. Unions have been crucial in this aspect by giving workers the relevant information about their rights and the necessary procedures, but also by facilitating action by limiting employer reprisals, correcting disinformation, aggregating multiple claims, providing resources to make a claim, and negotiating solutions to disputes on behalf of workers.
The research evidence clearly shows that the labor protections enjoyed by the entire U.S. workforce can be attributed in large part to unions. The workplace laws and regulations, which unions help to pass, constitute the majority of the labor and industrial relations policies of the United States. However, these laws in and of themselves are insufficient to change employer behavior and/or to regulate labor practices and policies. Research has shown convincingly that unions have played a significant role in enforcing these laws and ensuring that workers are protected and have access to benefits to which they are legally entitled. Unions make a substantial and measurable difference in the implementation of labor laws.
Legislated labor protections are sometimes considered alternatives to collective bargaining in the workplace, but the fact of the matter is that a top-down strategy of legislating protections may not be influential unless there is also an effective voice and intermediary for workers at the workplace unions. In all of the research surveyed, no institutional factor appears as capable as unions of acting in workers' interests. Labor legislation and unionization are best thought of as complements, not substitutes.
This video has presented evidence on some of the advantages that unionized workers enjoy as the result of union organization and collective bargaining: higher wages, more and better benefits, more effective utilization of social insurance programs, and more effective enforcement of legislated labor protections such as safety, health, and overtime regulations. Unions also set pay standards and practices that raise the wages of non-unionized workers in occupations and industries where there is a strong union presence. Collective bargaining fuels innovations in wages, benefits, and work practices that affect both unionized and non-unionized workers.
However, this review does not paint a full picture of the role of unions in workers' lives, as unions enable to process in the workplace and facilitate a strong worker voice in the broader community and in politics. Many observers have stated, correctly, that a strong labor movement is essential to a thriving democracy.
Nor does this video address how unionism and collective bargaining affect individual firms and the economy more generally. Analyses of the union effect on firms and the economy have generally found unions to be a positive force, improving the performance of firms and contributing to economic growth. There is nothing in the extensive economic analyses of unions to suggest that there are economic costs that offset the positive union impact on the wages, benefits, and labor protections of unionized and non-unionized workers. Unions not only improve workers' benefits, they also contribute to due process and provide a democratic voice for workers at the workplace and in the larger society.
Unions are under attack these days, and after watching this video, you can understand why. Those who would like to see the world with a small ruling class, which can call all the shots, don't want to give anything to the rest. Greed has produced billionaires who are so self-absorbed that they have no concept of what it is to scrape by and go without. People work all their lives for so little, and those with so much would turn this world into one large sweatshop. If these people could remove unions from the world, they then would remove labor laws and all safety nets. There is already talk about throwing out child labor laws, public education, and all forms of retirement benefits, all for the sole purpose of reducing the pay of the workforce. It doesn't matter if people have to live on the streets and eat out of garbage cans and watch your health deteriorate without any hope. All that matters to the rich corporations of the world is acquiring more wealth and power. So long as there are unions, those doing the work have a voice. But kill the labor movement, and then the extreme rich can dictate to the rest of the world. When you hear someone repeating anti-labor, anti-union propaganda, just remember who that serves. We need a strong labor movement to ensure that all can enjoy the rewards of their labor and to keep the world just a little fairer. No one is arguing that unions are perfect, but then what human organization is? All we are saying is that unions play a key part in keeping the world free and democratic. Unions make life a little better for all workers, who in turn produce more wealth for these corporations.